My name is Alice and I'm 34 years old. I hold the distinction of being the youngest director in the history of St. James Memorial Hospital, but for years my sister Ashley never knew any of this. 10 years ago I made a choice, an intentional one, to keep my success a secret instead of sharing my accomplishments with her. I let her believe I was just a waitress. It's not that I was ashamed of my past. I had worked as a waitress during my university years. It was a job that helped pay my way through school and I was proud of it, but to Ashley it had become my permanent identity, the label. She used to look down on me, and for years I played along. Are you seriously going to work as a waitress for the rest of your life? Ashley asked, wrinkling her nose in disapproval as she helped me pick out my wedding dress. I can't believe David actually wants to marry you. David, my fiancé, was a highly skilled neurosurgeon. We had met 3 years ago when he joined the hospital as a new resident. Of course, he knew exactly who I really was, the director of St. James Memorial. He loved me for who I was, not for any title or status, but Ashley didn't know that. Honest work isn't shameful, Ashley, I replied, admiring the elegant white gown in the mirror. Please, she rolled her eyes dramatically. My husband Gunther is a plastic surgeon and makes a fortune. Do you even know how much my handbag costs? Oh, I knew all too well that Gunther had applied for a position at my hospital the previous week. His interview was scheduled for Monday, 2 days after my wedding. I sighed, trying to keep my patience in check. Why can't you just be happy for me? Happy for you, she scoffed. It's embarrassing. David's entire social circle will be at the wedding. Doctors, their wives, and my sister a waitress serving tables. What a humiliation. I didn't respond. For years I had kept my position hidden for a reason. After our parents passed away, Ashley had become obsessed with social status. She married young, choosing a promising doctor, and from then on she looked down on anyone she considered beneath her. I, on the other hand, took a different path. I studied medicine, specialized, and worked tirelessly to become hospital director. But every time Ashley flaunted her seemingly perfect life, I simply smiled and let her believe I was nothing more than a waitress. The truth was I had been a waitress, but that was just a small part of who I was. I had worked hard to get where I was, and I didn't need to prove it to her or anyone else. The day of my wedding arrived and everything was perfect. The church was adorned with white roses, soft music played in the background, and the guests were all elegantly dressed. At the altar, David stood, his smile so warm that it illuminated the entire church. And then, just as we were about to exchange vows, Ashley stood up. This is ridiculous, she shouted, her voice slicing through the peaceful moment. This waitress doesn't deserve to marry a doctor. David, you're making the biggest mistake of your life. A stunned silence fell over the church. My heart pounded in my chest, but David stepped forward, anger and disbelief clear on his face. Before he could say anything, I held up my hand to stop him. Ashley, I said calmly, my voice surprisingly steady given the situation. Sit down. No, she protested, her voice rising. Everyone needs to hear the truth. My sister didn't even finish college. She's been lying to everyone about who she really is. Murmurs spread through the crowd, and I glanced at Gunther. He looked utterly humiliated, shrinking into his seat. He knew the truth was about to come out, and he knew his job interview with me was scheduled for 2 days from now. Ashley, I said again, trying to remain composed. Please don't do this. Do what? She sneered. Tell the truth. Look at you. You probably stole that dress. How could you afford something like that on a waitress's salary? David couldn't hold back anymore. More, Ashley, he said, his voice firm. I think you should. At that moment, the doors of a church burst open with a loud bang, interrupting him. Dr. Reynolds, the chairman of the hospital's board, hurried inside. Dr. Thompson, he called, using my professional title, and all eyes in the church turned toward me. Ashley froze. Do what? She whispered, her voice laced with disbelief. Ignoring the tension in the air, Dr. Reynolds walked briskly toward the altar. Director, there's been a massive accident on the highway. We need your authorization to activate the emergency response plan immediately. I took the documents from him, fully aware that every eye in the room was now on me. Ashley's face had gone completely pale, her lips trembling as she processed what Was happening, director, she repeated in disbelief. I signed the papers quickly, my hand steady despite the chaos. Activate all available operating rooms, I instructed Dr. Reynolds. I'll contact the on-call staff right away. Turning to David, I gave him an apologetic smile. I'm sorry, love. Duty calls, he smiled back. Understanding completely. Go save lives. We can finish this when you return. I turned to the guests who were still processing everything. I apologize for the interruption. There will be a brief recess while we handle this emergency. Please enjoy the cocktail hour. As I made my way toward the exit, I paused beside Ashley, who was still standing frozen in the middle of the aisle. I leaned in, my voice soft but firm. By the way, dear sister, your husband has an interview with me on Monday. I hope he's more professional than you. I left her standing there speechless as I walked out of the church, but this was just the beginning. Ashley had no idea what she had unleashed with her spectacle at my wedding. Monday arrived faster than expected. After successfully managing the accident emergency, we had been able to complete the wedding ceremony, albeit at midnight, and with half the guests still in their hospital scrubs. Ashley and Gunther, of course, had left long before that. Dr. Thompson, my assistant Sandra, announced, stepping into my office. Dr. Gunther McCarthy is here for his interview. Let him in, I replied quickly, organizing the papers scattered across my desk. Among them was Gunther's resume, along with some rather concerning hit like on this video reports from his private practice. Gunther walked in, his complexion as pale as a ghost. He didn't look anything like the arrogant man I'd heard boasting at family gatherings. Instead, he seemed smaller, deflated. Have a seat, please, I said, gesturing to the chair across from me. He hesitated, his eyes darting around nervously before he lowered himself into the seat, visibly shaken. Dr. McCarthy, I began formally. St. James Memorial Hospital. Alice, Dr. Thompson, I corrected him gently, emphasizing the title. We're in a professional setting here, right? Of course, Dr. Thompson, he muttered, shifting uncomfortably in his seat. I took a moment to glance at the file in front of me. Now, about what happened at the wedding. You mean when my sister, your wife, tried to ruin my wedding by calling me a waitress? I couldn't help but smile slightly. Don't worry, Dr. McCarthy, this interview will remain entirely professional. I flipped open his file. I see you've been working at Southview Aesthetic Clinic. Yes, I'm the lead surgeon there, he said, his voice tight. I turned the page. And it also seems you've had 3 malpractice lawsuits filed against you in the past 2 years. Gunther visibly stiffened his throat, working as he swallowed hard. That was a misunderstanding, he stammered, his voice shaky. Is it also a misunderstanding that you've been billing cosmetic procedures as reconstructive surgeries to get insurance coverage? I asked, watching him closely. His eyes went wide with shock. How do you know that? I leaned back in my chair, my gaze fixed on him as I spoke. I'm the director of the largest hospital in the city, Gare. I have access to resources. Just then my phone rang. It was Ashley. Excuse me, I said, answering the call and putting it on speaker. Alice. Ashley's voice trembled with desperation. You can't do this to Gunther. He needs this job. Ashley, I'm in the middle of an interview. Please. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry about the wedding, but don't ruin our lives because of some petty revenge. Revenge, I repeated softly, a calm smile tugging at my lips. Ashley, this isn't about revenge. It's a standard job interview where I'm simply reviewing the candidate's professional history. Liar. You've always been jealous of me, Ashley. Snap. First you pretended to be a waitress for years, and now this. Gunther shot her a frantic glance, silently begging her to stop. I couldn't help but chuckle. Jealous? Ashley, I have a doctorate in medicine. I'm the youngest hospital director in history. I just married the love of my life. Exactly which part of your life am I supposed to be jealous of? There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I now, if you'll excuse me, I'm conducting an interview in which your husband needs to explain why he's been committing insurance fraud. Silence, then a whisper. Fraud? Oh, you didn't know? I asked, innocently, funny considering the fraudulent claims were filed under your spa clinic's name. Ashley gasped. She was the clinic's administrator, the one who turned it into a front for Gunther's illegal surgeries. I'll send you the documents, I added smoothly, since your So passionate about exposing the truth. I'm sure you'll want to clear this up. Right away I ended the call, turning back to Gunther, who looked like he might collapse now. Dr. McCarthy, I said coolly. Where were we, please? He whispered, his voice trembling. Can we come to some sort of agreement? An agreement, I asked, pulling another document from my desk. Something like this. It was a resignation letter already drafted with his name neatly typed at the top. If you sign this, resigning quietly from your clinic and returning all the money you've stolen from insurance, we can avoid this escalating further. But what about the job here? He asked, his voice a mix of desperation and confusion. I gave him a thin smile. Oh, did you really think there was an open position? I'm sorry, but we don't hire doctors with a history of fraud. The door to my office flew open. Ashley stormed in, her makeup streak and her hair a mess. You can't do this to us, she screamed, her voice shrill. I sighed, looking at her with mild exasperation. Remember when you told me at my wedding that I didn't deserve to marry a doctor? Well, turns out you were right. I didn't just marry a doctor, I married an honest man who values integrity as much as I do. Sandra appeared in the doorway, glancing at the scene with a raised brow. Should I call security? Dr. Thompson, that won't be necessary, I said calmly, watching as Gunther signed the resignation letter with shaking hands. Dr. McCarthy was just leaving, and my sister will be accompanying him. Ashley's eyes blazed with fury as she hissed, this isn't over. I tilted my head, watching them leave. Oh, but it is, and it's only just beginning. Because what Ashley didn't know is that the fraud investigation was already underway, and the investigators would be arriving at her clinic this afternoon. The next morning, as I prepared coffee, David wrapped his arms around me from behind. Are you watching the news? He asked, nodding toward the television on the screen. A reporter stood outside South View Aesthetic Clinic, the headline boldly reading, prestigious clinic under investigation for insurance fraud. Ashley's been calling all night, I said, turning off the television. She left 47 voicemails. David kissed my cheek, his voice gentle. Did you listen to them? Only the first one, I said with a small smile. She went from calling me a vindictive witch to begging for help in a matter of seconds. My phone vibrated again, this time a text message lit up the screen. Please, sister. We're losing everything. Mom and Dad wouldn't have wanted this. The words stung more than I cared to admit. I felt the anger simmering within me, threatening to boil over. Now, after everything, now she remembered our parents. David, ever sensitive to my mood, tightened his embrace around me, his hand brushing lightly against my shoulder. You don't have to respond, he murmured, his voice calm and soothing, the opposite of how I felt. Oh, but I want to, I replied, my voice tight. I picked up my phone and, with a sharp inhale, dialed her number. She answered on the first ring, her voice frantic, desperate. Alice, thank God you picked up. We need your help, please. We're losing everything. I didn't let her finish. The bitterness in my chest was sharp. The investigators are going through your records, I said, cutting her off. They're finding all the cosmetic surgeries you billed as medically necessary. There was a long pause on the other end. I could almost hear her trying to gather herself, the weight of the situation crashing down on her. It was Gunther's idea, she blurted out, her voice tinged with panic. I was just the administrator. I only signed the papers. The same administrator who boasted at every family gathering about her six-figure salary. I asked, my voice laced with cold disbelief. You're telling me that was all Gunther's doing, but you took every opportunity to tell everyone how much money you were making off it. Ashley's voice cracked. The tears were flowing now, unmistakable in their raw, guttural sobs. Please, they're going to take everything, the house, the cars, our subscribe for more revenge stories. Entire life, they'll seize it all. I couldn't help the sharp, almost cruel edge to my words. The designer handbags, I suggested, my tone cutting through the air. The ones you were so proud of, the ones that cost more than what a waitress would make in a year. I'm sorry, is that what you want to hear? She begged, the apology barely coherent through her sobs. I'm sorry for humiliating you at your wedding. I'm sorry for treating you like dirt for all these years. But please, Alice, please help us. I sank deeper into the couch, my fingers white, knuckling the phone, my body tense as I steeled myself. Ashley, do you know why I Kept my position a secret for all those years. I asked, my voice quiet but full of emotion. She hesitated to get revenge. No, I said, my voice firm, now the calmness masking the years of frustration. I wanted to see who you really were. Every time you belittled me, every time you mocked my job as a waitress, you showed me exactly who you are. You made it so easy for me to see the kind of person you've always been. Alice, she started, but I cut her off before she could finish. And you know what else I discovered while investigating Gunther's fraud? I continued, my voice unwavering. Several of his patients suffered severe complications after his surgeries, disfiguring complications. People trusted him with their body, IES, and he put money before their safety, and you were the one who helped make all that possible. She started to shout back, but her voice faltered. That's not my fault, she protested, her voice panicked, defensive. Isn't it? I asked, not letting her off the hook. You ran the clinic, you saw the patient complaints, you knew about the complications, but you were too busy flashing your new handbags and talking about your lavish lifestyle to care about any of it. There was a long silence on the other end of the line, and in that moment I almost felt a sense of satisfaction at her inability to defend herself. But before I could say anything more, the doorbell rang sharp and insistent. David, ever the attentive husband, stood and walked to the door. Without a word, Dr. Thompson, a firm, authoritative voice called from the doorway. It was Detective Reynolds. His presence this early in the morning told me everything I needed to know. The investigation was moving forward at full speed. I'm sorry to disturb you so early, he said, stepping inside with an air of professionalism that matched the weight of the situation. He was holding a thick folder under his arm, the kind that usually signaled something serious. But we need your official statement regarding the McCarthy case. I nodded, acknowledging his presence with a curt gesture, but I didn't hang up on Ashley. I couldn't. She needed to hear this. Still holding my phone, I took a deep, steadying breath and turned my attention back to the conversation at hand. Ashley, I said, my voice cool but direct, the detective is here. Do you want the truth? Because I wasn't the one who started this investigation. It was one of Gunther's own patients, a woman who nearly died from a post-operative infection. My investigation just confirmed what was already suspected. There was a stunned silence from Ashley. I could feel the weight of the words sinking in, the realization of how deeply she was involved. So no, sister, I continued, my voice unwavering. I can't help you. Justice will run its course. Ashley's voice cracked again, but this time it was laced with hysteria. This will ruin us. You can't let it happen. No, Ashley, I said, sharply, my voice cutting through the air like a knife. You ruined yourselves, you and Gunther, and you didn't just destroy your own lives. You harmed innocent patients, people who trusted you and put their faith in a system you had to exploit them. There was a long pause, and then, with all the fury she could muster, Ashley screamed into the phone, her words full of venom. I hate you. You've always been jealous of me. I couldn't help but let out a soft chuckle, shaking my head in disbelief. Jealous, I repeated, amusement creeping into my voice despite the anger bubbling just beneath the surface. Ashley, I'm the director of one of the most prestigious hospitals in the country. I have a husband who loves me for who I am, not for the size of my bank account, and most importantly, I can look at myself in the mirror every morning knowing I do what's right. She didn't answer immediately. For the first time, I heard the fragility in her voice, the realization perhaps that she had lost everything. Alice, she whispered, her tone now small as if the weight of her actions had finally broken through her define exterior. Goodbye, Ashley, I said, my voice final and resolute. I hope prison teaches you a thing or two about humility. Without another word, I ended the call. The silence on the other end, a loud echo of what was now irrevocably over. I turned to Detective Reynolds, who had been quietly watching me, his expression unreadable but understanding. Without a word, I walked toward the entryway, ready to sign my statement. I knew the wheels of justice were already turning, and that my role in this mess was coming to an end. But there was something that still lingered deep inside me, a quiet satisfaction that, no matter what happened next, I had made the right Choice, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the story, like the video and subscribe to our channel. This is Revenge Scales, where justice always finds its way. See you next time.